Hello, welcome to episode 11 of your German language course, Radio D. Broadcasting work has stopped for the day in the Current Affairs department, but Kompu, our talking computer, is still in the office. So are Josefina, who's cleaning up, and Eulalia, the talking owl. Ayhan, who's still got a bit to do, is curious as to how the three are going to get on. Listen to the start of the conversation.
Ayhan, was machst du da?
Ich arbeite, das siehst du doch.
Verstehe. Ich störe wohl. Hallo Eule. Du bist auch noch da?
Das ist eine Eule, aber sie heißt Eulalia. Das weißt du doch.
Oh, du hast ja schöne weiche Federn. Sag mal, bist du wirklich eine Eule?
Well, let's leave them to it for a moment and go over what's been said. Josefina turns first to Ayhan and asks him what he's doing.
Ayhan, was machst du da?
Well, that's not hard to guess. He's working. And that, he tells Josefina, she can see, can't she?
Ich arbeite, das siehst du doch.
Sensitive Josefina has, of course, immediately noticed Ayhan's irritation, so she withdraws, saying, I understand, I'm probably disturbing you.
Verstehe. Ich störe wohl.
And then, just as Josefina wants to start work, she notices Eulalia. She greets the bird in a friendly way, but she doesn't address it by name.
Hallo Eule. Du bist auch noch da?
Then Kompu joins in and reminds Josefina of the owl's name.
Das ist eine Eule, aber sie heißt Eulalia. Das weißt du doch.
Josefina has very carefully approached Eulalia and touched her feathers. She's surprised at how beautifully soft they are.
Oh, du hast ja schöne weiche Federn.
Still not quite believing that there's an owl at Radio D, Josefina asks Eulalia whether she's really, wirklich, an owl.
Sag mal, bist du wirklich eine Eule?
Josefina has a rather lively imagination, and I suspect that when she put the question, she was thinking of the kind of fairy tales in which princes are transformed into animals. Whatever, unfortunately, we missed Eulalia's answer. The following conversation is about the origin and meaning of the name Eulalia. What does Kompu find out about it?
Eulalia. Eulalia. Woher kommt dein Name?
Ich bin klug und weise. Aber ich weiß nicht alles. Ayhan, warum heiße ich Eulalia?
Eulalia? Das klingt sehr schön.
Eulalia, Eulalie, griechisch, Name, weiblicher Name, bedeutet schöne Stimme.
Toll, Kompu, danke. Eulalia, Jetzt weißt du, warum du Eulalia heißt. Deine Stimme ist schön.
Meine Stimme ist schön? Zitze, zitze, zitze.
Kompu finds out two things. One, that Eulalia is a female Greek name.
Eulalia, Eulalie, griechisch, Name, weiblicher Name.
Secondly, Kompu's found out what the name means. Eulalia means fair of speech or beautiful voice.
Eulalia, Eulalie bedeutet schöne Stimme.
Well, at the risk of interfering, maybe I should point out that there's also in Eulalia the Greek word lalin, which means to chatter. That is, to say things that don't really make an awful lot of sense. Anyway, the discussion about Eulalia's name was started by Josefina asking from where, woher, it comes.
Woher kommt dein Name?
So as not to appear ignorant, Eulalia emphasizes once again that she's smart and wise, but she adds that she doesn't know everything.
Ich bin klug und weise. Aber ich weiß nicht alles.
Well, we can understand that. And it is, of course, smart of Eulalia to pass the question on to Ayhan.
Ayhan, warum heiße ich Eulalia?
And Ayhan says what he's always said, that Eulalia sounds very nice.
Eulalia? Das klingt sehr schön.
Word must have got around that there's an owl named Eulalia at Radio D, because there's no other explanation for the following phone call. Try to understand what the Spaniard Carlos says about another Eulalia. It'll help you to pay special attention to two words you might know from your own or perhaps another language.
Ja, bitte?
Ayan?
Ah, guten Abend, Carlos. So spät noch?
Hola, Ayan, pardon. Sag mal, stimmt das? Bei Radio D ist eine Eule und sie heißt Eulalia.
Ja, Carlos, das stimmt. Woher weißt du das?
No ist importante. Das ist nicht so wichtig. Wichtig ist, Eulalia ist ein spanischer Name. Santa Eulalia.
Santa Eulalia?
Sie, eine Heilige, eine Märtyrerin.
Oh, Madonna. Carlos? Carlos, bist du noch da?
There were two words there that could help you pick out which other Eulalia Carlos is talking about. He's talking about Santa Eulalia, Saint Eulalia.
Santa Eulalia.
That gives you a hint that there's a religious context to this. And that's confirmed by the second word. This is a holy woman, a martyr, Märtyrerin.
Santa Eulalia?
Sie, eine Heilige, eine Märtyrerin.
The martyrdom of Saint Eulalia, who died aged only 12, happened a very long time ago, though, in the 4th century. Ayhan is probably trying to express his sympathy when he explains, "Oh, Madonna," but at that precise moment the telephone connection breaks off.
Oh, Madonna. Carlos? Carlos, bist du noch da?
And that worries Ayhan a bit. Has he perhaps unintentionally insulted Carlos? Might Carlos be thinking that Ayhan meant "Oh, Madonna" ironically? Is that why he hung up? To clear it up, Ayhan hurries to Carlos, who works in the foreign languages section of Redaktion D. In the telephone conversation, Carlos didn't think it was important to say how he found out about Eulalia.
No ist importante. Das ist nicht so wichtig.
It is important to Carlos to point out that Eulalia is a Spanish name.
Wichtig ist, Eulalia ist ein spanischer Name. Santa Eulalia.
True, Eulalia is also a Spanish name, but its origin is Greek. Well, without having actually spoken to Carlos, I can assure you, listeners, that there hasn't been any misunderstanding between them. Carlos didn't hang up. It was just a technical fault that broke the connection. But I notice our professor is just bursting to explain something to you.
Und nun kommt unser Professor.
Radio D.
Gespräch über Sprache.
Hello again, dear learners of German. Inquisitive people want to know a lot, and for that you need to be able to ask questions. That's what we'll be looking at today, how you can ask questions in German.
Right, and some questions begin with an interrogative word, but our listeners already know that.
Yes, they know questions with the word why, for example, warum, used to ask for a reason.
Warum? Warum heiße ich Eulalia?
Yes, but don't forget there are also questions without interrogative words.
Bist du wirklich eine Eule?
Yes, and the answer to such questions is either yes or no, or also, I don't know.
In these kind of questions without an interrogative word, the verb comes right at the start. Here are two more examples. Is that right? Am I disturbing you?
Stimmt das? Störe ich?
And now I want to tax the fine hearing of our listeners some more.
Careful now.
Listen for interrogative sentences that are constructed just like affirmative sentences.
They're the ones without interrogative words, and their verbs don't come first.
That's right. The only way to recognize the difference between a question and an affirmative statement is in the intonation. Try to pick which of the two utterances is a question.
Du bist auch da.
Du bist auch da?
Well, that's pretty hard, you know. You might have given them the tip that in a question the voice goes up at the end.
Hallo Eule. Du bist auch noch da?
You're quite right, of course. Sorry about that, listeners. Here's a chance for you to compare the two. The second utterance is a question.
Deine Stimme ist schön.
Meine Stimme ist schön. Zitze, zitze, zitze.
Well, it's getting late now, and the protagonists in our office are saying goodbye.
Gute Nacht.
Gute Nacht.
Schöne Stimme.
Danke. Gute Nacht.
And that's it for this time. In the next session, we'll be answering some listeners' mail.
Liebe Hörerinnen und Hörer, bis zum nächsten Mal.
You've been listening to Radio D, a German course of the Goethe Institute and Deutsche Welle Radio.
Und tschüss.
Project of the Goethe Institute and Deutsche Welle Radio. The author is Herat Mese.
And a warm welcome to episode 12 of your German course Radio D. It's special today. We're going to be answering some listeners' letters. Well, that is our professor will be.
Hallo, liebe Hörerinnen und Hörer,
Willkommen
bei Radio D,
Radio D.
Hörerpost.
Okay, let's go straight to the first question. A woman listener asks about the you form of address in German. When is it du and when is it sie?
Well, that is a very interesting question, that one, and many Germans aren't sure about it either. Let's have an example so that everyone knows just what we're talking about. Listen for sie and du.
Was machen Sie hier?
Was machst du hier?
We'll now play you two bits from scenes in which these two questions are asked. You may even remember who said it to whom. Then you can get a feel for when one says du and when one says sie.
Was machen Sie denn?
Remember, that was the doctor of King Ludwig II.
And he, of course, addresses the king very politely indeed.
Of course.
Yes, of course. And in German, the polite form of you is sie.
Eihan, was machst du da?
And that was Josephine asking Eihan what he's doing.
And being young, knowing each other and having a lot to do with each other, Josephine and Eihan are on du terms. Listen to 2 more examples and pay attention again to the roles of those conversing.
Entschuldigung. Entschuldigung. Wer sind Sie?
König Ludwig.
Also, Philipp, das ist Eihan.
Wie heißt du? Eihan? Eihan?
So if you want to be polite and respectful and you're addressing strangers or people with higher status, you use the Sie form of address. And among friends and people you know well, you use du, is that right?
No, it's not quite as general as that. You also say sie to many people you know, and many young folks start off right away with du, even if they don't know each other, because they don't pay a lot of attention to formalities. Mm-hmm. I'd recommend to all our listeners that it's never wrong to address someone as sie. But if you say du to someone right off, they might consider that impolite, and you wouldn't be off to the most brilliant start of a conversation.
Right. And people you've addressed with sie, but for whom the du form is more usual, will soon tell you. Right, the next question from a listener is about how one's supposed to introduce oneself. Do you say only your first name or your first name and your surname?
We talked about this in a previous episode and pointed out that it depends on the social context. I want our listeners to know that they can't go wrong giving just their surnames, especially on official occasions or when getting to know new people.
Mein Name ist Müller.
Mein Name ist Meier.
Now, usually we either introduce ourselves to other people or we're introduced to them by someone else. What's the usual response, Professor?
One says something like angenehm, which means something like my pleasure, which is a bit too formal and somewhat old-fashioned.
I'll say.
Most times one just introduces oneself by saying one's name. One often also hears the question, wie geht es Ihnen? How are you? Or just something like, how's it going? Wie geht's?
Majestät, wie geht es Ihnen?
Tag, Hanne. Wie geht's?
But as a question, it's not really meant seriously, though, is it? I mean, do they expect an answer?
In the context of just meeting someone, it's a more or less empty phrase, and it's answered in kind. For example, good, thank you, danke, gut, or danke und Ihnen, thanks, and how about you? So we're not meant to go into detail about what you happen to be experiencing just at that moment.
Okay, next question coming up, and it's a tough one. A listener asks about the use of the word denn.
No, that's not a tough question. I wouldn't say that. I'd rather describe it as a smart question, though. I'm getting really excited about this one. The listener is asking about the function of denn. That's an unchangeable word belonging with the particles. Partikel.
Whoa, hang on. Before you get too abstract, Professor, let's have a couple of examples for the listeners.
Wer bist du denn?
Was machen Sie denn?
You must have understood the two questions. Who are you? What are you doing? Depending on the context these questions are spoken in, they have different accentuations. In the question, Wer bist du? Who are you? The stress might be on the you, du, if one wants to know who someone is.
Wer bist du?
Also, curiosity or amazement is emphasized if you use the particle den. For example, when Philip hears the voice of Kompu for the first time.
Wer bist du denn?
Ich bin Kompu.
You use den to react to something that was said or done earlier. The response can express amazement or perhaps annoyance. Have a listen again to the example in which the accent is on the verb machen.
Was machen Sie denn?
Understandably, King Ludwig's doctor is pretty annoyed when the king wants to pull him into the water.
Was machen Sie denn? Halt! Halt!
Like all particles, the little word den does not fundamentally change the meaning of something being said, but it does modify it. That is, it strengthens or weakens it.
So the meaning of the utterance stays the same. But why do our listeners have to know that?
You're right, one understands the sentences without the particles too. One doesn't have to look long for the meaning, but our listeners should know that there's a lot of these particles in spoken German, and sentences with particles sound much smoother, not so dry.
Right.
Listen to two more examples.
Was ist denn das?
Ein Tisch, liebe Sissi?
Hilfe! Wer ist das denn?
Eulalia.
So have we been hearing any more particles?
Yes, we have actually. I'd also like to talk about the particle doch. You turn to your interlocutor with doch to seek their agreement on something.
Das ist doch Philipp.
One reminds the partner that he wanted to know something. For example, that there's an owl at Radio D.
Wie bitte? Wer ist das denn?
Eine Eule. Das siehst du doch.
And especially when something is pretty self-evident, doch is used a lot to express mild irritation.
Hallo Eule. Du bist auch noch da?
Das ist eine Eule, aber sie heißt Eulalia. Das weißt du doch.
And to finish, I'd like to mention my favourite particle. It's eigentlich. That means actually, and it's pretty mean.
Wo ist Philipp?
Wo ist eigentlich Philipp?
How do you mean mean?
Well, it floats around looking harmless when in fact it can greatly strengthen an accusation. What do you think? Is Ayhan asking a harmless question, or does it also carry the accusation that Philip isn't in the current affairs room?
Wo ist eigentlich Philipp?
In München.
Nein, im Stau. Philipp ist im Stau.
Next question. A listener asks when you use nicht, not, and when nichts, nothing.
I don't want to start with an example this time, but I'd rather give our listeners a tip. The two negation words nicht and nichts sound very alike in German, so there's a real danger of getting them mixed up a bit.
So how do you avoid it?
It's best to learn the examples in context and imagine the situation. In a situation where one hasn't got a clue about what's being said, the obvious thing to say is, I understand nothing, or I don't understand a thing.
Ich verstehe nichts.
Right, that's what happens with Ayhan when Paula returns to the office from her reporting assignment about King Ludwig, and Ayhan can't understand why she's so cross.
Paula, ich verstehe nichts. Ich verstehe überhaupt nichts.
Du verstehst nichts? Ach.
So nichts negates something general, for example, when one doesn't understand something at all. And I suppose there's the same difference in every language between not understanding something at all and not knowing about a specific thing. And in German, the latter is expressed by the word nicht. It always relates to something specific.
Or it can simply negate a specific thing. For example, we hear that Philip is not at the Radio D Current Affairs office when his mother phones him there.
Mein Name ist Frisch, Hanne Frisch. Ist Philipp da?
Nein, der ist nicht da.
Let me make quick reference to the opposite of nichts, the word all, alles.
Du verstehst alles?
That was Josefina's stunned reaction when she discovered that Eulalia understands everything.
Oh, Entschuldigung, du verstehst alles?
Alles and nichts describe positively and negatively something very general. And the middle way between knowing everything and nothing is nicht alles wissen, not knowing everything. So now one actually knows it all, right?
Eulalia. Eulalia. Woher kommt dein Name?
Ich bin klug und weise. Aber ich weiß nicht alles.
Well, I'm afraid that's all the time we have today for Listener's Mail. Thanks very much, Professor.
As always, it's my pleasure, and I'd like to thank our listeners for their very astute questions.
In our next episode, reporters Philip and Paula will be covering a new story.
Liebe Hörerinnen und Hörer, bis zum nächsten Mal.
You've been listening to Radio D. There is Herat Mese.
Welcome to episode 13 of your German course with Radio D. Today is a very special day. It's Rosenmontag, Rose Monday. It's the penultimate day of Carnival, and it's being celebrated in Germany with varying intensity depending on which part of the country you're in. We're in Berlin at Radio D, and in Berlin, which is in the northern half of Germany, they're not all that crazy about Carnival. But those who feel like it do dress up a bit, like Philip, the Radio D journalist. He's put on the mask of a witch, or Hexe. Well, you know, he's not all that original, our Philip. His colleague Paula comes into the office. What's her reaction?
Ja, ist ja gut.
Hello! Hello!
Hallo! Was ist denn mit dir los, Philipp?
Ich bin eine Hexe. Heute bin ich eine Hexe. Eine Hexe.
Oh, das sehe ich. Sehr witzig.
Aber Paula, was ist denn mit dir los? Heute ist doch Rosenmontag. Und die Deutschen?
Hello! Hello!
Oh je, oh je, oh je. Radio D, ein Zirkus.
Achtung, Recherche, Recherche, Hexe stiehlt Autos, Hexe stiehlt Autos.
Well, you'll probably have noticed that Paula is more irritated than amused. When Philip hails her with the carnival greeting, hello, she asks him immediately what's the matter with him.
Ja, ist ja gut.
Hello! Hello!
Hallo. Was ist denn mit dir los, Philipp?
Well, Philip just giggles and reveals that today he's a witch.
Ich bin eine Hexe. Heute bin ich eine Hexe. Eine Hexe.
Since that's pretty easy to recognize from his mask, Paula says sarcastically, I can see that. Very witty. Ha ha.
Das sehe ich. Sehr witzig.
But Ayhan reminds her that today is Rose Monday, Rosenmontag. The word is made up of two nouns. Listen again to Ayhan. Do you understand the first part of the composite word?
Heute ist doch Rosenmontag.
The first part of the word describes a flower, the rose, Rose. The second part describes a day of the week, Monday. But it's not as if it were raining roses this Monday, which would of course be very nice. No, the first word comes from the old verb, rosen, that used to be used in the Rhineland region where they've always celebrated Carnival in a big way. And rosen, which is a word that no longer actually exists as a verb, means, well, to rave, to gallivant, to frolic and let your hair down and do crazy things, which is just the way many people actually are in Carnival.
Aber Paula, was ist denn mit dir los? Heute ist doch Rosenmontag. Und die Deutschen?
Hello! Hello!
Ayhan doesn't get to explain any more about all the things that Germans get up to on this day, in his view, because Philip interrupts him and Paula says she feels like she's in a circus.
Oh je, oh je, oh je. Radio D, ein Zirkus.
Sounds like it's just as well that Kompu has a new assignment for the journalists. Listen for that assignment again. This is about the meaning of the verb. What does the witch do with the cars? What's your guess? Remember, it's Carnival.
Achtung. Recherche. Recherche. Hexe stiehlt Autos. Hexe stiehlt Autos.
Maybe you thought the witch would spray colourful graffiti onto cars or drape paper snakes across them. No, that's not it. This witch is exploiting the carnival fancy dress to steal cars. Philip and Paula set out for the Black Forest region in southwest Germany. 18 cars have already been stolen there. We're with these two reporters live on their expedition right into the thick of Carnival.
Hallo, liebe Hörerinnen und Hörer.
Willkommen
bei Radio D.
Radio D.
Heute live.
Philip and Paula have arrived at their destination, but they're not wearing masks. Paula managed to persuade Philip to take off his witch's mask because she thought he looked pretty silly in it. Have a listen now to what happens to Philip and why he's looking for his witch's mask.
Ja, hallo. Wir sind hier mitten im Karneval.
Hello! Hello!
Wir fahren jetzt noch weiter, aber hier sind sehr viele Menschen.
Lauter Hexen? Hello!
Eins, dann zwei, dann drei, dann vier, dann stehen die Hexen vor der Tür. Die schützen dich, kommen und fallen über dich. Hey, Mann, los!
Komm raus! Halt! Ich bin doch auch eine Hexe! Halt! Hilfe! Paula!
Meine Maske! Wo ist meine Hexenmaske? Oh, Hilfe!
Paula? Paula, what's going on? Paula, can you hear me? We seem to have got cut off in the hubbub. Well, that gives us a chance to go over what's just happened. Okay, so first of all, Philip is still joking about being surrounded by witches.
Lauter Hexen?
Oh dear. If only Philip hadn't listened to Paula and had kept his witch's mask on. Then at least he could have claimed more credibly that he's a witch too. Or at least that's what he thinks.
Halt! Ich bin doch auch eine Hexe! Halt! Hilfe! Paula!
Philip looks desperately for his witch's mask, but he can't find it.
Meine Maske! Wo ist meine Hexenmaske?
So the two of them are there in the thick of the carnival, which I think you could hear pretty clearly.
Ja, hallo. Wir sind hier mitten im Karneval.
But then it obviously got harder and harder to keep on driving the car because there were so many people on the roads, including witches.
Wir fahren jetzt noch weiter, aber hier sind sehr viele Menschen.
And now the witches have surrounded the car and pulled Philip out. What are they doing with him? Well, we'll just have to wait and find out. Because first, here's our professor.
Und nun kommt unser Professor.
Radio D.
Gespräch über Sprache.
Well, Professor, things were a bit chaotic at Radio D today. Is the German sentence structure just as chaotic?
No, fortunately it isn't. One certainly can't say that. There's a certain order to the sentence parts. That's what I'd like to address today. And I repeat, this is about parts of sentences, not single words.
Shall we begin with the verbs, the predicate?
That's a good idea. Listeners, in the following examples, please pay attention only to the forms of the verbs bin and fahren. In the declarative sentence, the verbs come in second place.
Ich bin eine Hexe. Wir fahren weiter.
And what's in first place in the sentence?
Normally, the nominative complement, the subject, comes first. In the examples, the pronouns ich and wir.
Ich bin eine Hexe. Wir fahren weiter.
And what exactly do you mean by normally?
It's always correct to have the subject start the sentence, but especially in spoken language, you'll often hear something else in first place. Listen to the two possibilities.
Ich bin heute eine Hexe. Heute bin ich eine Hexe.
So which sentence parts can be put at the start of a sentence?
That's often information about things like time. Today, say in German, heute, like you've just heard. It could also be information about a place. Let's hear an example of that with hier. Hier.
Wir sind hier mitten im Karneval. Hier sind sehr viele Menschen.
But complements can also be put at the start of a sentence, right?
Yes, indeed. We've heard that a lot with the accusative complement, the accusative object. For example, das.
Das sehe ich.
Das sehe ich. Sehr witzig.
Let me sum up. In the declarative sentence, the verb always comes second.
Okay, Professor. Thanks a lot for that.
It was my pleasure.
Here are those two scenes again. In the first scene, Philip's put on a witch's mask because it's carnival.
ist sehr gut.
Hello! Hello!
Hallo. Was ist denn mit dir los, Philipp?
Ich bin eine Hexe. Heute bin ich eine Hexe. Eine Hexe.
Oh, das sehe ich. Sehr witzig.
Aber Paula, was ist denn mit dir los? Heute ist doch Rosenmontag. Und die Deutschen?
Hello! Hello!
Oh je, oh je, oh je. Radio D, ein Zirkus.
Achtung! Recherche! Recherche! Hexe stiehlt Autos! Hexe stiehlt Autos!
Philip and Paula drive to a small town in southwest Germany where a witch is stealing cars.
Ja, hallo. Wir sind hier mitten im Karneval.
Hello! Hello!
Wir fahren jetzt noch weiter, aber hier sind sehr viele Menschen.
Lauter Hexen? Hello!
Erst eins, dann zwei, dann drei, dann vier, dann stehen die Hexen vor der Tür. Hey, wann los?
Komm raus!
Halt! Ich bin doch auch eine Hexe! Halt! Hilfe! Paula! Meine Maske! Wo ist meine Hexenmaske? Oh, Hilfe!
And in the next episode, you'll hear what happens to Philip and to our poor abandoned Paula.
Liebe Hörerinnen und Hörer, bis zum nächsten Mal.
You've been listening to a joint project of the Goethe Institute and Deutsche Welle Radio. The author is Herat Mese.
And a warm welcome to episode 14 of your German language course, Radio D. If you were with us last time, you'll remember that our two reporters, Paula and Philip, have been assigned to follow up a report about witches stealing cars. In the thick of the carnival revelries, some witches have abducted Philip, and we still don't know how he and Paula are getting on.
Nachricht von Philipp. Philipp ist okay.
Oh, thank goodness for that. I'm glad to hear it. Kombu, can you bring us up to date?
Ja, hallo, hier bin ich wieder. Ah, die Atmosphäre hier ist wunderbar. Ich habe nur ein Problem. Wo bin ich? Wie finde ich Paula? Schließlich haben wir ja einen Auftrag. Ah, hier sind so viele Menschen. So viele Menschen.
Well, it's good that we've at least got word from Philip. He seems to be absolutely fine, and he's obviously enjoying the wonderful carnival atmosphere.
Ja, hallo, hier bin ich wieder. Ah, die Atmosphäre hier ist wunderbar.
Unfortunately, he doesn't mention exactly what happened. Well, we can only assume that he was able to give the witches the slip. Now, that's all well and good, but he's now stuck in masses of carousing people, and he obviously has a problem. He doesn't know quite where he is, nor how to find Paula.
Ich habe nur ein Problem. Wo bin ich? Wie finde ich Paula?
After all, Philip and Paula are on a reporting assignment. They have an Auftrag.
Schließlich haben wir ja einen Auftrag.
It doesn't sound as if Philip's managed to do a lot of work so far on this assignment. Maybe Paula's found out a bit more. I'll see if I can locate her. Hello? Paula? Are you there?
Ja, hallo, da bin ich wieder, mitten im Karneval. Tut mir leid, hier ist wirklich sehr viel los. Also, Philipp ist weg. Das Auto ist auch weg. Rosenmontag ist überhaupt nicht lustig. Ich glaube,
As you heard there, Paula also seems to be in trouble. And not just because she's in the middle of Carnival, where there's an awful lot going on around her.
Ja, hallo, da bin ich wieder. Mitten im Karneval. Tut mir leid, hier ist wirklich sehr viel los.
Paula's problem is not so much that Philip's gone.
Also, Philipp ist weg.
It's that the car's gone as well.
Und das Auto ist auch weg.
And so for Paula, Rose Monday is anything but fun. Lustig, which we can well understand.
Rosenmontag ist überhaupt nicht lustig. Ich glaube,
What I don't understand is how come the car's gone? Maybe Paula wanted to help Philip when the witches pulled him out of it. It did all happen very quickly. Maybe she got out of the car for a moment. We just don't know. Just as we don't know what she's going to do now.
Nachricht von Paula. Sie. Nein, das glaube ich nicht.
Kompu? What I can tell you is that Paula has spoken to a policeman, Polizist, on the street, but that doesn't explain Kompu's reaction. Well, have a listen to what happened to Paula.
Ja, da bin ich wieder. Ein Moment, da ist ein Polizist. Hallo? Hallo?
Junge Frau, was gibt's?
Das Auto ist weg.
Aha. Name?
Philipp Frisch.
Interessant. Sehr interessant. Sie heißen Philipp Frisch? Hello.
Nein, nein, das Auto gehört Philipp Frisch.
Und wer ist das?
Mein Kollege, der ist auch weg.
Und ich auch, junge Frau.
Das war wohl kein Polizist.
Paula addresses a man in a police uniform, but in her stress she doesn't realize that the man's only wearing it as fancy dress. It's only when he turns away that she realizes he's not a policeman.
Das war wohl kein Polizist.
But before that, when she still believed that this really was a policeman, she reported the theft of the car to him.
Das Auto ist weg.
The make-believe policeman first of all plays his part and asks for her name. But when in her confusion she says Philip's name instead, he has to laugh.
Aha. Name?
Philipp Frisch.
Interessant. Sehr interessant. Sie heißen Philipp Frisch? Hello.
What Paula was trying to say, of course, was that the car belongs to Philip.
Nein, nein, das Auto gehört Philipp Frisch.
Okay, well, we'll catch up with them when they're back in the office. For now, let's hear what our professor has to tell us.
Und nun kommt unser Professor.
Radio D.
Gespräch über Sprache.
Carnival. People dressing up, wanting to appear as something they are not. I don't know.
Professor?
Huh?
We're on air.
Oh.
We don't want to philosophize, we want to talk about language.
But that's really closely connected, especially in this episode, which focuses on the verb to be, sein.
Yes, sein is an irregular verb whose infinitive our listeners don't know yet. They only know the conjugated forms, for example, bin or ist.
Ich bin Paula. Das ist Eihahn.
Verbs need complements. One can't just say, I am. Ich bin.
Ich bin.
Well, maybe in a philosophical sense.
Oh, I don't know. Okay then, seriously now. The verb sein has many functions. It enables a variety of utterances, for example, for spatial orientation.
Wo ist Paula?
Sie ist mitten im Karneval.
Or temporal orientation.
Heute ist Karneval.
Or to convey a fact.
Philipp ist weg. Und das Auto ist auch weg.
And the verb sein makes it possible to express a whole range of feelings. For that, it's linked with adjectives.
Die Atmosphäre hier ist wunderbar.
Rosenmontag ist überhaupt nicht lustig.
So, sein links with various complements. If they're adjectives, they don't change their form. It doesn't matter whether a woman or a man is speaking.
Ich bin klug.
Ich bin klug.
And since we've been talking so much about Carnival, we're going to finish with a quiz question for you. Do you remember what this special, rather crazy Monday in the Carnival season is called?
A. Orchideenmontag. B. Tulpenmontag. C. Rosenmontag. Oder D. Narzissenmontag.
Now that's something we're going to have to talk some more about.
Yes, all right, Professor, but don't take it so seriously. Listeners, the answer is in the last scene at the end of this episode. You can hear some of the scenes again now, as well as a new one at the end. Philip is caught up in the carnival melee.
Ja, hallo, hier bin ich wieder. Die Atmosphäre hier ist wunderbar. Ich habe nur ein Problem. Wo bin ich? Wie finde ich Paula? Schließlich haben wir ja einen Auftrag. Hier sind so viele Menschen. So viele Menschen.
Paula is desperate. Both Philip and his car are gone.
Ja, hallo, da bin ich wieder. Mitten im Karneval. Tut mir leid, hier ist wirklich sehr viel los. Also, Philipp ist weg. Und das Auto ist auch weg. Rosenmontag ist überhaupt nicht lustig. Ich glaube,
She speaks to a man in police uniform.
Ja, da bin ich wieder. Ein Moment, da ist ein Polizist. Hallo? Hallo?
Junge Frau, was gibt's?
Das Auto ist weg.
Aha. Name?
Philipp Frisch.
Interessant. Sehr interessant. Sie heißen Philipp Frisch? Hello.
Nein, nein, das Auto gehört Philipp Frisch.
Und wer ist das?
Mein Kollege, der ist auch weg.
Und ich auch, junge Frau.
Das war wohl kein Polizist.
And to conclude this episode, here's a surprise scene that also contains the answer to our quiz. Watch out for the last statement Eihahn makes.
So ein Mist. Philipp ist weg. Das Auto ist weg. Karneval ist lustig. Das ist doch das Auto von Philipp. Da ist ja eine Hexe drin. Halt! Halt!
Hallo, Paula.
Eihahn. Du?
Tja, Rosenmontag, das ist lustig. Die Deutschen...
Yep, Carnival can cause quite a few mix-ups. No idea why Eihann's come to the Black Forest too. Or maybe he just wanted to come along on an assignment for once. But instead of helping Paula and Philip, he's played a pretty mean prank on them. And I suppose it'll just have to be left up to the police to find out who stole the cars.
Liebe Hörerinnen und Hörer, bis zum nächsten Mal.
You've been listening.
Hello and welcome to the 15th episode of your German course with Radio D. Last time, Ayhan played a prank on our two journalists Paula and Philip in the Carnival Malay, which especially shocked Paula. And she's not the kind of person to take something like that lying down, so she's thought up a carnival prank of her own. Have a listen to what she's doing.
Ayhan, du bist sehr schick. Ayhan mit Krawatte. Was ist heute los?
Heute ist Karneval. Karneval. Das war doch sehr lustig.
Sehr witzig, Ayhan.
Und das ist auch sehr lustig, oder? Schnipp, schnapp, schneck, ist die Krawatte weg.
Oh, nein! Hilfe! Hilfe! Oh. Na schon gut. Okay. Das war nicht sehr lustig. Entschuldigung, Entschuldigung. Ich spendiere eine Pizza.
Eine?
Rache ist süß.
Well, that was quick as lightning, but maybe you were still able to hear that Paula cut off Ayhan's tie, Krawatte, with the scissors.
Schnipp, schnapp, schneck, ist die Krawatte weg. Ha!
In some parts of Germany, this is a carnival prank that women like to play on men, but only in the week before Rose Monday, on the Thursday, when the women are officially in charge. But Paula isn't too bothered about the timing of this custom, especially as Ayhan still thinks his prank was funny.
Das war doch sehr lustig.
After a short cry for help, which could just be part of the game, Ayhan does apologise.
Oh, nein! Hilfe! Hilfe! Oh. Na schon gut. Okay. Das war nicht sehr lustig. Entschuldigung.
And Ayhan announces magnanimously that he'll buy them a pizza, to make up for it.
Ich spendiere eine Pizza.
One pizza for 3 people is not exactly a lot. But anyway, the good mood's been restored. Eulalia, the talking owl, has heard everything, and she comments that revenge is sweet.
Rache ist süß.
Yes, a little getting your own back like that can be pretty satisfying. But then Paula and Philip have to get to work. They take to the streets with a tape recorder collecting impressions of Carnival, a time when many people slip into different personas in their fancy dress.
Hallo, liebe Hörerinnen und Hörer.
Willkommen
bei Radio D.
Radio D.
Die Reportage.
Let the atmosphere work on you a bit and have a listen to what this woman likes.
Der Vogelfänger bin ich ja stets lustig, heißer Hopsassa. Ich Vogelfänger bin bekannt bei alt und jung im ganzen Land.
Ist das nicht herrlich? Und das Kostümchen schön wohl?
All the people are exuberant. They're dancing, drinking and singing. A woman is really enthusiastic about the music and about the costume of feathers that one of the men is wearing. He's dressed up as Papageno. Papageno, the bird catcher in Mozart's opera The Magic Flute.
Der Vogelfänger bin ich ja stets lustig, heißer Hopsassa.
Maybe you thought that the German the woman was speaking sounded a bit strange. That wouldn't surprise me at all, because she didn't actually speak High German, but the dialect of the Ruhr area. They say, for example, dat instead of das.
Ist das nicht herrlich? Und das Kostümchen schön wohl?
In all the hurly-burly, Paula spots two people, probably father and son, wearing wings of exquisitely beautiful white feathers. Paula and Philip want to know who they're pretending to be. They ask the little boy first. Try to hear who it is the boy is playing and what it is that's most important to him.
Hallo, du bist aber schön.
Wer bist du denn?
Siehst du das denn nicht? Ich bin Ikarus.
Na klar. Entschuldige bitte, Ikarus. Sag mal, kennst du die Geschichte von Ikarus?
Nö, ist doch real. Hauptsache, ich kann fliegen.
You may have picked up whom the boy is playing. Icarus. Ikarus, a figure from Greek mythology.
Ich bin Ikarus.
And like the figure he represents, the boy says that being able to fly, fliegen, is the most important thing for him.
Hauptsache, ich kann fliegen.
And the way the boy sees it, anyone should recognize immediately who he is. That's why he responds to Philip's question with an astonished counter-question. Can't Philip see that? And he asks it in a broad Berlin dialect.
Wer bist du denn?
Siehst du das denn nicht? Ich bin Ikarus.
So the boy knows he's Icarus, but Paula can't imagine him knowing the Icarus story. Geschichte.
Sag mal, kennst du die Geschichte von Ikarus?
And as she suspected, the boy doesn't know the story, and he couldn't care less.
Nö, ist doch real. Hauptsache, ich kann fliegen.
This mythical story of Icarus and... No, let's leave that till the next episode. Now, you can probably still hear the way the Berlin boy spoke, and I can see that the professor wants to tell you something about that.
Und nun kommt unser Professor.
Radio D.
Gespräch über Sprache.
Do you remember the woman's reaction to the man who was impersonating Papageno? I asked the listeners whether they thought the speech of the woman sounded strange.
Yes, I do indeed. And to prevent the impression being created that people had also disguised their language in Carnival, I want to draw attention first to the various ways German can sound. The joy of the woman expressed by the question, "Isn't that splendid?" would sound like this in High German.
Ist das nicht herrlich?
But because she's from the Ruhr region, it sounds a bit different.
Ist das nicht herrlich?
Well, there are probably different pronunciations and sentence melodies and dialects in all languages.
I don't know, but I expect so. So just prick up your ears. The boy's question, "Can't you see that?" would sound like this in High German.
Siehst du das denn nicht?
But in Berlin dialect, it sounds like this.
Siehst du das denn nicht?
I'd like to talk now about a peculiarity of some verbs in German. Listen to the Berlin boy again and watch out for the verb form in the first word.
Siehst du das denn nicht?
You might not immediately recognize that the form do you see, siehst du, belongs to the infinitive to see, sehen.
Yes, that's what I wanted to point out. For some German verbs that have the vowel E in the infinitive, the E, as in sehen, changes into IE, as in ceased, which is spoken as a long E, in the second and third persons.
Sehen. Siehst du das denn nicht?
Okay, thanks, Professor. That'll do for this session.
You're welcome.
You can have a listen now to some of those scenes again. Listen first to the prank Paula plays on Ayhan.
Ayhan, du bist sehr schick. Ayhan mit Krawatte. Was ist heute los?
Heute ist Karneval. Karneval. Das war doch sehr lustig.
Sehr witzig, Ayhan.
Und das ist auch sehr lustig, oder? Schnipp, schnapp, schneck, ist die Krawatte weg.
Oh, nein! Hilfe! Hilfe! Oh. Na schon gut. Okay. Das war nicht sehr lustig. Entschuldigung, Entschuldigung. Ich spendiere eine Pizza.
Eine?
Rache ist süß.
Now hear the encounter with the man dressed up as Papageno.
Der Vogelfänger bin ich ja stets lustig, heißer Hopsassa. Ich Vogelfänger bin bekannt bei alt und jung im ganzen Land.
Ist das nicht herrlich? Und das Kostümchen schön wohl.
Paula and Philip notice two people wearing white wings. The boy is dressed up as Icarus.
Hallo, du bist aber schön.
Wer bist du denn?
Siehst du das denn nicht? Ich bin Icarus.
Na klar. Entschuldige bitte, Icarus. Sag mal, kennst du die Geschichte von Icarus?
Nö, ist doch real. Hauptsache, ich kann fliegen.
In the next episode, there'll be more about Icarus and his father.
Liebe Hörerinnen und Hörer, bis zum nächsten Mal.
You've been listening to Radio D, a German course of the Goethe Institute and Deutsche Welle Radio.
Und tschüss.